Welcome back to another video on how I draw stuff. For today's hair drawing video, I'm gonna split it in two, drawing and painting. Drawing means sketching and line art, while painting is coloring, shading, and rendering. Let's start with something small, the hair strands. Now if you still draw hair strands like this, stop it. Get some help. Most tutorials I learned from simplify the hair strands into ribbons. Not this ribbon, by the way. I don't know why I showed this to you. I'm talking about these ribbons. Let's try using one of them. You can trace the ribbons, but honestly, it's not that hard to draw. So just try to draw it yourself. Let me show you the easy way to draw. So just draw a bunch of lines like this, and then you draw another bunch of lines, and then you connect the lines. Then you erase the overlapping parts. Now it's shaped like a ribbon. Now this ribbon is only the basic shape. To make it into hair strands, of course you need to add more details. Now when drawing the hair strands, you don't want it to have the same length like this. You want them to have like different set of lengths, some short, some longer. I'm making the short one, then continuing with the longer strands. By the way, if I sound weird during this whole process, it's because I'm speaking at the same time as I draw, and you know me and how bad I am at multitasking, right? Usually I would just record the video and then put voiceover, and I like to add like this tiny little what do you call it, like cowlicks at the end of each strand, because I'm not a fan of having the ends of the hair looking like this. I don't know, it just looked unfinished to me, but if it's okay with you, then you can just leave it like this. By the way, I'm using the flat watercolor opaque brush, okay? I use it for sketching, I use it for coloring, for shading, for rendering. And now we add the tiny hair strands. Just add a random hair strands here and draw it like a ribbon. I also erased the lines that separated the little hair strands with the rest of the hair. You can add as many as you like, but just remember that the more you add the hair strands, the messier the hair looks. And there we go from the ribbon shape to the actual hair. Now I'm sure all of you wanted to draw the hair on top a head instead of drawing the hair itself. So let's summon our bald head. This will turn into Mini Durin by the end of this video, but for now I will call him Humpty from Humpty Dumpty, not because he likes humping people. Okay, we're getting sidetracked. Anyway, I will show you the guidelines I used for the hair placement. First, I draw a line here following the shape of the head. Kind of looks like Kratos, isn't it? Then I will add this oval at the temple. This will indicate the side of the head. Now this guideline is only a rule of thumb, obviously. You don't have to follow it religiously or anything like that. And now I will draw the hairline. I'll draw a little V over here, then draw the rest of the hairline. I should have used different color for this. Hold on. Okay, so now you can see the hairline clearly. And that's basically the guideline I use. By the way, the size of the forehead is around the same length of the nose, sometimes a bit longer or a bit shorter depending on the character you draw. Then we determine the root of the hair, for example here. But don't draw the hair directly on top of it, okay? You will have a flat ass hair. Give a little gap, like maybe around the size of one eye, and this will be the top of the hair. This way, your character will have volume in their hair instead of having a very flat, oily hair. This is the best hairstyle I've ever drawn. Before drawing the hair itself, we're dividing the head into 3 portions. I will use different color for each one. So this is the first portion, this is the second, and this is the third. Of course, the portion is depending on the angle, but for 3/4 view, this is how I split it. Because we're drawing Mini Durin, I have prepared a reference, but I can't seem to find a picture of him facing forward or at least 3/4 view. They're all the side view. So try to imagine using this reference for 3/4 view drawing, okay? Okay, now we have Humpty back, and we're going to draw the hair according to the split. You can immediately draw the hair strands like this, or you can also use the ribbon method. Just you draw it like this first, like a ribbon, but I'm going to immediately draw the hair strands. just to make it quick, or else this video will be 2 hours long. And I don't think nobody wants me to yap for 2 hours long. Now the green part is a little bit higher. It's like 2 mountains, and then you connect it. And again, for an easier drawing, you can implement the ribbon method. And then we have the blue part. I forgot to put a gap between the head and the hair, so I will just raise it using the liquify. Sometimes these things happens, and when it happens, you just use the liquify. And now we can draw the cleaner sketch. I sketch it pretty messily because I usually don't put too many thoughts on my sketch because I just want to get right into the rendering. The sketch is very messy, but I will show you how to make it tidier in the line art segment of this video. Actually, I don't draw line arts that often, but I just want to show it briefly in this video because it's been a while since I do line arts, and I want to show you how to draw the hair more neatly and not just leaving it like this. But usually I will just leave the sketch like this and leave it for my future self to figure everything out during the rendering, which you shouldn't do, by the way. Okay, because I'm just making it harder for myself. Before we get into the line art, I'm going to show you my brush. I usually use glass pen. This is suitable if I'm in the mood for a very tidy and neat line art, or if I'm in the mood for something more loosey-goosey, I just use the flat watercolor opaque like I use for the sketch and for the coloring and the rendering. One thing I always do is turn on the stabilizer and put it on max. IBISPAINT only has 10 levels, but if your drawing app has like 100, like set it for 100, okay? Just go for the maximum setting. Like the name suggests, it stabilizes every stroke you make, which is very convenient for me because my hand is shaky AF, like I'm off my rockers. I will use the glass pen, okay, to switch things up. And whenever you're line arting, start with the biggest shape first and make clean swipe. It will take a while, but just be patient. Okay, we got our curve. Now there's a small hair strands here. Use a very tiny brush to draw it and continue drawing the big shapes. If there are overlapping parts like the hair strands here, just draw it overlapping. It's fine. You can just draw through the existing line. If you try to be careful and not make the line go through each other, like a little bit here and then add it here, trying to fill the gaps yourself, it will look very untidy. So just go through the existing line. It's fine. You can always erase it. If you want to be extra careful, you can do this on a different layer. Now, obviously, I will not line art the whole hair. I just want to show you briefly how to draw tidier hair. To make your line art not monotone and boring, add thinner line to emulate the hair strands. And then, okay, you see this area right here. It forms sort of like a V in between two lines, right? I like to fill it with color to add more depth and dimension. You can continue doing this for the rest of the hair, and trust me, it will be so much easier to color, to shade, to render even. But you know me and my laziness, so I will not continue this. This is literally how I sketch, but I still visualize all the methods in my brain as I draw. I put a gap between the head and the hair. I divided the hair into 3 sections, and even though you can't see the ribbon shape, I draw the hair strands in different lengths. The more you practice, the easier it is to visualize the guidelines in your brain because it builds your visual library. Okay, enough yapping. Now we're actually getting into the coloring. I've painted Durin's face, even though it doesn't look as cute as the first time I painted him, and he looks kind of depressed here. Oh well, let's determine the light source first, and I'm gonna use the flat watercolor opaque 2 to apply the soft shadows. I'm doing this in a multiply layer. I applied it on the top and bottom. Actually, it's the middle. I like to leave the bottom lighter. You see the gap becomes smaller as it's getting further from the light source. That's gonna be the guide for the lighting. I made another multiply layer and applied small and darker shadows on overlapping parts. Consider the hair as layers, and they're overlapping. The layer below would have a dark shadow from the layer on top of it. Next, I created a soft light layer and applied some highlights. Make sure the highlights make a curve so the hair looks round, because you should shade the hair like a ball, as tons of tutorials say. Anyway, I don't add highlights on the area the farthest from the light source because of obvious reasons. I also added the highlight color to be muted so it doesn't look that different from the rest of the hair. Then I jump straight into rendering or painting over the sketch. Two things to make sure in this stage. 1. Use high opacity on your brush. 2. Keep the small, dark shadows intact. Hair is so easy to lose definition during rendering that all you ended up with is a lump of blurriness. So high opacity brush and keep the dark shadow intact. To render the hair strands, let's take a piece of Doreen's hair because there is no way I can explain this with the full drawing. Too much hair, man. Now to shade the hair itself, I am going to make a Hyundai logo, just kind of like an italic H. Then I apply darker color on the top and bottom of the lighting. And then add more details by adding lines to emulate the hair strands. To add more hair strands, I made another layer and then just add the silhouette of the hair strands. I don't actually add this in the actual painting, but I just want to show you guys how to add hair strands in the rendering stage. Because sometimes people just add it like this, but it doesn't look natural at all. You need to shade the hair strands. So start with the silhouette first and then fill it in with color. I usually color the inside lighter. And don't forget to apply shadows because it is on top of the rest of the hair. Don't forget to add highlight as well. You need to shade it just like you shade the rest of the hair. I'm going to fast forward the video, but always take care of the small dark shadows or else you will lose all the contrast and the hair will lose its definition. I also want to talk about Doreen's bangs in more detail because it's one of the biggest part in the hair. Let's zoom it a little. It looks a little flat, so I'm going to make another layer for his bangs. Make a Hyundai logo like before, and at the very top, I usually like to make a little gap here and color it with lighter colors on the inside. Then I'm going to sketch the top layer. It might look different in the actual painting because I just want to show it in more detail briefly here, so I won't be as meticulous as in the actual painting. And then just shade the bottom part as usual. This part of the hair will be darker because it's further from the light source, but I will also add more highlight because it's actually on the top layer, so it should have a little bit of strong highlight. Anyway, that's all I want to talk about Doreen's bangs. Now continue on with the rest of the painting. Then I just render as usual. Honestly, when rendering hair, it's just repeating the same method to different areas. I just realized I said it like it's easy. No, it's not that easy, okay? At least for me. I've been struggling with painting hair for the longest time and I still suck. I want to paint hair like Junyuan on Xiaohongshu. They have a soft watercolor style painting, but the hair doesn't look blurred at all. They don't paint too many details like what I'm doing now. Forbid, just don't paint too many details. Okay, look, it's not that easy. Okay, if it were, I would have done it ages ago and would have aced the whole hair painting. Maybe I'm just making things hard for myself. Yep. Anyway, I made the bottom part of the hair lighter for stylization. I also added the skin color to Doreen's bangs and any part of the hair that's close to his face. It will give a slightly translucent look, so it looks more natural. I'll adjust his hair color because I think I used the wrong color for this. I think the color I used is too dark. It's supposed to be slightly pink and lighter. Now we're moving on to the color adjustment segment of the video, where we turn the hair painting from dull to a little less dull and possibly a bit cooler-ish. By the way, yes, the face changes a lot because I did something to it, but we won't cover it here because this is a hair video. First, I add more of the skin color using the overlay layer to the areas around Doreen's face. Then I add muted pink on a screen layer as a soft highlight. I did all of this using a low opacity airbrush. Then use a multiply layer to deepen the shadow if necessary. Adjust the brightness and contrast with, brightness and contrast. The name literally speaks for itself. And adjust the colors a little bit with hue and saturation. You can find all of these tools in Filter. Now, this is my favorite part. not just for hair but for the whole painting. Duplicate the painting, then apply gradation map. My go-to combination is the blue-red one. Set the layer to soft light and lower the opacity to around 20%. See the difference it makes? Now sadly, gradation map isn't available for F2P, free to paint. But there's an alternative called parallel gradation. Difference is, it doesn't affect the contrast like gradation map does, so the gradation looks kind of flat, but it still works quite well. Here's another method I like. Add thin shades of blue to the hair. You know, many artists like to add blue to the skin. Well, why stop at the skin? Use low opacity brush for this. I don't recommend using an airbrush though because it's too soft and it's harder to blend with. Pick the hair color, open the color wheel and slide it to blue. Pick a slightly lighter shade. Swipe it thinly on the hair, then take the resulting color and continue to paint. I mostly apply it on the shadows to reduce the harshness and on the inside of the hair for stylization. By the way, do this on another layer so it's easy to fix when you F things up. And lastly, my golden child, the unsharp mask filter. You can skip this if you like softer looking paintings, by the way. I actually considered not to use the unsharp mask for this one because Durin looks so soft and fluffy, but in the end I sharpened it a little. We go from this to this. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video and I will see you in the next one. That's about it. Bye bye.